the steering committee meeting to order. First item on our agenda is a reading and the approval of the minutes. I'll call on Vice Chair Brad Turner.
Mr. Chairman, I've had a chance to review those minutes. I find them in order and I make a motion for their approval.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. I would like to comment that we have several future leaders of Rutherford County in the audience, members of the Youth Rutherford, Leadership Rutherford, and I would like to invite those students to stand up, maybe give us your name and what school you attend and anything else. So, and we'll just start here and go this way, I suppose.
I'm Stephen Ward. I go to Riverdale High School.
I'm Kayla Reed. I go to Blackman.
I'm Hope Tippett. I go to Siegel.
I'm Beth Shirley. I go to Central.
Colton Tincher. I go to Blackman.
Jackson Arnett. I go to MTCS.
Good job. Listen, thank y'all very much for being here, and we appreciate you because you're the future leaders of our county. First thing on our agenda is to announce 2 vacancies on the Correctional Work Center Board. This will be the seat held by Mr. Virgil Gammon and Mr. Tim Rudd. We need to announce vacancies on the Equalization Board to fill the unexpired term of Tim Rudd, and that term will expire in April 2018. At this time, we need to fill 3 vacancies on the Agricultural Advisory Board. This will consist of a farmer. The applicant is Mr. Charles Hord, a farm woman, Mrs. Cindy Ayers, and Commissioner, which will be Commissioner Joe Frank Jernigan. Is Ms. Hord, Mr. Hord, or Ms. Ayers in the audience by chance?
Ms. Ayers is.
Would you like to stand up and introduce yourself and make any comments?
Cindy Ayers. My family's owned land in Rutherford County since 1858. I currently live on a farm. We raise beef cattle. Mr. Burgess happens to be my neighbor, or at least his your sons happen to be my neighbor. I'm very active in the Farm Bureau of Women. My youngest child is very active in the Rutherford County Extension, the 4-H program.
I noticed that sometimes Mayor Burgess's bull will get loose and get on his properties.
It was my bull.
It was your bull, okay.
Unfortunately, it was my bull.
Okay.
But we did get him back home.
Okay, the chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that all 3 be recommended before the full commission by acclamation.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. And your name will be submitted to the full commission on Thursday, the 15th. Thank you so much. And at this time, we will fill the county coroner's vacancy. We have 1 applicant, Mr. Mike Nunley. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Nunley, I think he has some people he would like to introduce.
I would just like to introduce to you some people that are instrumental in the Rutherford County Medical Examiners Program. Because that's what we do as coroner. This is Dr. Lorraine McDonald. She's our medical examiner. And this is Carl Hudgens. He's one of our principal deputy coroners, and Dwight Stone, the other one. So between these 3 people, I have actually very little to do. Thank you.
I noticed on Law and Order they can do an autopsy in about 5 or 10 minutes. Can you do that?
That would be
Close to it? Okay. Super. Okay, at this time, the chair would like to ask for a motion on the coroner's position.
We approve it.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. And we have a proposal by Commissioner Mr. Gurley, Commissioner Gurley.
Well, at the last meeting, first of all, thank you for having me. At the last meeting, I proposed to increase the training, education, and experience requirements to run for sheriff or be appointed sheriff in Rutherford County by 15 years, which would make a total of 18 years. After looking at that, I'd like to drop that down to make that 7 years additional or 10 years total experience. With everything else as I proposed previously, that is a combination of education and experience. There's questions regarding whether we can do this or not, I think, as our county attorney has mentioned, but the only way we'll really know is if we send it to our legislative delegation and let them take it to the Hill. We don't really know whether Tennessee Sheriff's Association will support or lobby against it. In my contacts with them, they prefer to not comment until it gets to the Hill. It's not a problem or an issue for them until it gets to the Hill in January. So, as I stated previously last month, my feeling is, and this is what got it started, is that part of the problem that we're incurring right now is due to a lack of education and experience and the person who's been sheriff for the last few years. So I think I've looked at almost everyone that has submitted, the 16 people who have submitted to have their names considered for appointment, and I think almost every one of them probably meet, and many of them exceed this requirement by a fold of 2 or 3. So, as I said last time, in surveying our other large counties of similar and larger size, I found that most of the sheriffs had at least 30 years of experience, and it just kind of speaks for itself. We're not a little county with a 23-member department when I started getting involved with the sheriff's department many years ago. So we've grown. That's in all aspects. At school, every department of county government has grown by magnitudes and will continue to grow if we continue to grow. So I've thrown this out for your consideration. I realize that it's got a long way to go but maybe if it's not approved, then maybe it'll get some people thinking about it at other in the legislature, because I think ultimately the legislature should carry that thought throughout the state on a tiered level of education and experience depending on the size of the county. In other words, the greater responsibility, then the more education and experience. And that's kind of the way it is in the private sector. The bigger the company, the more education and experience you typically look for in filling the head of that organization. So whatever you decide on it tonight, I'll leave it to y'all to talk about it. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Just, Josh, if you looked into this any, is it what would it require? You probably need to stay up here. You'll be up here.
Okay, yeah. I'll get comfortable.
Thank you.
Yeah, I did look at it again, and I'm happy to comment on it. I know we like black and white answers, and they're unfortunately in the law sometimes pretty hard to give. But let me back up. I'm going to repeat a little bit of what I said last month and then add to it a little bit, because I think you've got to step through this analysis sort of step by step. So starting with the Tennessee Constitution, Article 7, Section 2, it says, as we mentioned last month, that the legislature, Tennessee legislature, is who sets the qualifications for elected officials. When it comes to the elected office of sheriff, the state legislature has done that, and we've looked at that. 88102 is the long list of qualifications for an elected sheriff. Stopping there for a moment, I think there's 2 things we can know for sure, black and white. One is the Rutherford County Commission could not pass a resolution that applies only in Rutherford County that changes those qualifications. I think we know that, but We definitely could not do that under the law. Another black and white is you definitely could change the general law and the qualifications for sheriff by having the state legislature change the general law that would apply to every county across the state and every sheriff across the state. So those are two options that we know for sure. One you can't do, one you definitely could make that request to the state legislature. Whether they do it or not, is a different question. The wild card we started talking about last month was the private act scenario. So I did look at that a little bit more, and I have a few things that I will kind of pass around, and you can take one and pass it. You're not going to want to probably read it here, but I've got copies for you because I'm going to refer to them. The two main things that are worth looking at are the two attorney general opinions that are coming around, and they're not really, I wouldn't call them factually relevant, but the analysis is relevant because it's talking about private acts and when they're appropriate and how to use them. And I think there's two basic principles we can pull out of this, and that is that a private act, in order to be appropriate, is going to have to pass two basic tests. One is it cannot contradict or conflict with the general law. And the second test is that there has to be some rational basis for treating one county, in this instance, different from other counties. So when we get to the suggestions Mr. Gurley is making, I think in order for it to be covered by a private act, you're first going to have to decide that it doesn't, in your view, contradict or conflict with the general law, which is the qualification statute. So supplementing, I would submit to you, may be different than contradicting or conflicting. And so the question becomes, do these requirements that are being suggested contradict or conflict? And then the second thing is, even if that works, even if it doesn't contradict or conflict, you're still going to have to determine that there is some, or Nashville will have to determine, that there's some rational basis for treating Rutherford County different with respect to sheriff qualifications than all the other counties. And they'll have to determine that in order for a private act to pass muster. So having said all that, I think really it's kind of a policy decision on whether or not you want to send something down there along these lines. It will get vetted in Nashville. I'm not sure I can give you a black and white answer on whether or not the state legislature will view, well, no, I'm sure I can't give you a black and white answer on whether or not the state legislature would view these suggestions as being conflicting with the general law. Obviously, I don't know what the Sheriff's Association will think about it, and so forth. And I think it would be incumbent upon our legislators who carry the bill to begin to articulate a reason that Rutherford County's qualifications should be distinct and different from the other counties, which perhaps they can do, but I think it's part of the necessity for the private act to pass muster.
What's the current qualifications? Just 3 years of post? And is there an age? Do we know
I thought we said last.
Yeah, it was, I think it's 25.
25, I think,
I
yeah.
may have passed out stuff, more papers than I meant to. Is there two AG's opinions there that I passed around? Okay, yeah, that's what I meant to pass.
And so, Mr. Gurley, your proposal is to, instead of just 3 years of post,
Add 7 more years of education and experience.
so, okay, so 7 to 10 years of combined.
Well, it'd be 10 years combined,
Okay.
7 years additional. Well, of course, the justification, I think, if our legislative delegation chooses to take this to the Hill, is the fact that we're not, our department, 500 and plus members, is much larger than, say, Charleston County, Cannon County, Meigs County, Moore County, that may still be back with 25 or 30 members in their department, and that therefore the experience and so on is greater, the need for experience is greater in managing a larger department. That is, I fully agree with Josh that, you know, we don't really know. We don't even, but nothing ventured, nothing gained. I feel that at some point, the sheriffs and the legislature is going to have to address their requirements, but this may get them to thinking, if nothing else.
You think it'd be more palatable? I know the Sheriff's Association is a very powerful lobbying
I know
organization.
that also.
You know that from experience. But you think it'd be more palatable, it was tied some way with the population because the larger counties would be more
I think
agreeable
that's
to
the
it?
justification that the delegation is going to have to use. There's, like I said, I did a survey of the counties from our county on up, and you know, almost every sheriff has 30 years of experience. Those are counties with more population. They have the larger population of the county, the larger pool of potential candidates and so on that you have. As we've seen from submittals for the appointment, we apparently have a rather large pool of candidates. And that's not necessarily true in smaller counties like that, and some of those are not very far away from here, but the population is 7,000 or 8,000 people total. That, you know, I have almost as many people behind my house on the street school campus on a daily basis as some of the counties have in their entire population.
So what we would submit would be making that a state requirement, or would the focus for us
It
just
would be a
on the
private
county?
act right now. I would like to get the legislature thinking about it and Tennessee Sheriff's Association think about it in the sense of overall for applying things on a tiered basis to all the counties, but that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, that's why
I'm
I was
just
just
trying to look
think
out
for-
right now.
Right, for
There's
us.
further desirable outcomes of this, but right now I'm concerned about Rutherford County.
Right. Well, we should be. I mean, we need to be worried about us. And that's kind of what I was asking. I didn't know what the direction we wanted to take, whether it was just something for the private act for Rutherford County, or if the end game was to get the state delegation, try to encourage the General Assembly as a whole to endorse that.
I think this, ultimately both, but I don't think the time's right. It's a hard-fought process, from what I understand, to get the current requirements. And as our mayor so stated last meeting, the requirements for several other positions are very minimal or non-existent. So it's a bigger issue than what we're prepared to address here.
So last month, I think his proposal was, what, 15?
Yeah, a total of
So,
18 years. We're
18.
taking that down to 7 additional, which will make it a total of 10 years, which is, I think, probably more palatable.
Okay. So last month, this committee didn't take any action, so at this time, we'll open the floor up to see if any of these questions, comments, debate, or any motion.
Josh?
Yes,
excuse
sir.
me, before we get into votes, the way this private act is written, and for those of you who want to look it up, it's on last month's minutes, I believe. You can go back to 11/7 and pull it up if you want to. But the way this is written, you think it would pass muster at the state level?
Do you mean?
With the black and white issue that you mentioned earlier? Does this have a chance of creating discussion or even passing?
Yeah.
Since it's exclusive to Rutherford County, or it looks like it's
Understand.
exclusive to Rutherford County.
Right. I don't know for sure, okay, and I've said that, but I think it's got its challenges, I guess is my view about it, because the current statute that addresses the qualifications for sheriff addresses educational and post-certification requirements right now. So if we pass something that deals with those same topics, I think one could reasonably conclude that we are conflicting with the existing rules with respect to those same topics. Where I think it gets challenging is this, and let me use this example. Let's just say, for example, that it doesn't say this, so understand, it doesn't say this, but just pretend the sheriff's statute, the law, said that to run for sheriff you had to have a college degree. And we wanted to do something in Rutherford County that said to run for sheriff in Rutherford County you only have to have a high school degree. I don't think that would have a prayer, because to me that clearly conflicts with the general law. We've taken a requirement and we've taken it away, and I don't think we have the authority to do that. What we're doing here is we're increasing. It's like saying, well, you don't have to have a college education, you have to have that plus 2 years. Well, does that conflict, or is that an additional requirement? And does an additional requirement conflict with, in the legal sense, the existing requirements? You could argue it's not conflicting with it, that it's just adding requirements, and that's different than conflicting. And that's why I think this particular proposal is challenging to know with certainty what would happen. In my anecdotal checking on this, I think that there's a lot of people out there that think that if you do anything that addresses any topic in the sheriff's statute, in the sheriff qualification statute, that you can't do it. I think there's a lot of anecdotal. By that I mean, if you talk to people at CTAS and stuff like that, I think they express question about that, but they will not say you cannot do it. See, so I talked to CTAS about this. They don't just say outright, this will not fly, but I think it is questionable whether or not this in fact conflicts with the sheriff qualification statute.
I think if we're going to do it, we need to change the general law, where it says you have to have a 3 years experience, except in Rutherford County, you have to have a total of 10 years experience.
Right.
We just did that a few months ago when our litigation user fee passed.
Right.
We looked at the possibility of doing a private act for that, but we didn't for this very reason, because it would conflict with the general law, so we amended the general law instead. So it says that every county shall charge this amount for a user fee,
Right.
except Rutherford County, which is going to charge another amount.
And as I said, introductory comments, I mean, when you're trying to get into the black and white, one clear black and white is you could try to change the general law. I think Mr. Gurley, I don't want to speak for Mr. Gurley, his concern is that is a tough to get through. And that's I don't have an opinion on that. That's a policy question.
As I said before, I'm not a lawyer. I brought forth a proposal that we need to increase the educational and experience requirements, and I'll leave it up, if someone wants to write it, it's not in the form that it really needs to be right now. That, like I said, whatever form it needs to be most palatable is the way it should go up to the Hill.
Commissioner Johnson.
The fine line to draw would be anything that you can deal with either less restrictive or more restrictive for the guidelines.
That's true.
That would be the fine line that you'd have to walk. So
I think that's a good way to think about it.
I think it'd be very difficult, because like Joe and I both said, knowing the powerful arm of the law, and that's a pun, I'm sure, with the Tennessee Sheriff's Association.
If we do nothing else, we get some thought moving on this topic.
If you talk to any of the legislators, you got a feel from them?
Not really.
Not really.
I think if we're going to do it, we could say that we would like them to either do a private act or change the general law, whichever way gets it done.
I think it should be open to, whatever is most palatable, and I'm fully aware that it's a very difficult thing. I've known the executive director with the Sheriff's Association for 40 years, and we talked, and he expressed the same sentiments, that, he didn't want to get involved right now. He said, his words were, you never know when it hits the Hill. And I think that's true of a lot of topics, not just this topic, but that's true of a lot of topics. And, but so I'm open to the wishes of the body.
Would this be an effort in futility, or do you think that really?
I think there's a, you know, in talking with a lot of people, I think there's a lot of people disgusted with the situation that's going on in this county. I've been eating lunch in other counties and had someone approach me that I knew, and the first topic of discussion has been the sheriff of Rutherford County. So it's a situation that's not just limited to something in the DNJ or WGNS. This has gone statewide and outside the state, and it is a topic that people will know about and are looking for a resolution to. So from that standpoint, I think I haven't talked to anyone who said, no, I don't want that, including several of the people who have applied for to be the interim sheriff. Because to be quite frank, they all have more, they all meet these requirements and then some.
Okay, Commissioner McAdoo?
We got a meeting coming up with the state legislators when, what date?
It usually comes in January. We have not set that date.
I was just thinking, why couldn't we present this directly to them during our discussion? And we could get their input too. Because I understand, I read somewhere that Senator Kettrick was looking into something concerning the sheriff. And I don't know what it was, but that would be a good time to bring it all out on the table. So we would know that our state legislators is going to present this, they got the input in, and they'll feel comfortable with it, so.
Very good suggestion.
Good thought.
Yeah.
Could we do that instead of sending it to our legislative delegation and asking them to support it
I think Commissioner
in
McAdoo's
Nashville?
suggestion is very good.
If we could just send it to them and ask them to look into it and see if we can discuss it at our meeting, is that what you were talking about?
That's what I'm talking about.
That's my motion.
Yeah.
Second.
Just a second.
Don't think you need a
On
motion.
what we're talking about here, we really won't need a motion, because I think what he would do is when the commissioners would ask the questions and stuff, the legislators, that they would just come up. He's not thinking we would have.
Well, I was just talking about, and I thought Alan was too, is that we go ahead and send this to them and ask them to be looking into it, because we'll want feedback
Them
and
to
discussion
discuss
at our
it for
January meeting.
feedback. So therefore, they'll have a copy that night. They can't say we blindsided them with.
So
some
we would
documentation.
expect some feedback from them that night.
So what does the motion say again?
This will be for their perusal.
It would probably, I guess the motion would have to say either look into a private act amendment or a general law.
But if we vote for that, then we're on record supporting that.
Well, I think what Jeff was saying was here, we wanted to send to them what the steering committee had said, this is going to be brought up at our delegation meeting. We
So
want
just-
you to consider that for discussion, and I'd probably leave it at that.
That's exactly right. We're not asking them to do anything other than to give us feedback as
Right.
to this, so that
Just asking for feedback.
so that we
Right.
won't just give it to them that night, that we'll ask them for some
Right.
information.
And they can be looking, okay. Okay, read them.
Send the item to the legislators to review and have discussion at the legislators' meeting for feedback.
How's that
Okay.
sound?
Sound good.
Good.
Okay.
And I will send a modified version.
Any other discussion or comments?
Would it be appropriate to send this to the Sheriff's Association too and ask for some input back from them? What do you think? But just get it out there instead of, just get some input back from them.
Yep. The,
Okay, who made the motion?
I did.
Okay, and who, the second it?
I'll second it.
Okay, so we're gonna send the, asking for feedback from the sheriff's.
I'm asking Joe, since this is that appropriate?
We can do it. I had a conversation with the executive director about a month ago, right before I a day or so before I came before the body
Mhm.
last time, and he basically said that he would prefer not to comment on it, that he would prefer to wait till it got to the Hill.
Okay.
Well, we can leave them out.
Okay. Okay, so basically, we're gonna be asking our delegation for feedback.
Mhm.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Next on our agenda is a resolution regarding Tennessee Energy Efficient Schools Initiative. I'd like to invite to the table Mr. Jeff Sandvik. And anyone that you may have brought with you.
Just me.
Just you, okay. Okay.
Okay. We have had several projects through energy efficient schools. We have committed to pay the principal and the interest. And we have seen savings in our utilities, some in the dollars, more in the usage. And this was started with a $90 million fund, lottery proceeds. And some of it was given out in grants. More of it is lent out. And on ours, we look at the payback of our projects. We've gone 3-4 years on ours because that is the payback we've got calculated on these. And Paul Cross, their executive director, came to our board and asked if we, Rutherford County, would be interested in a resolution of support, trying to get that pool increased so more money's available for lending across the state. When you're looking at 2.8 4-year projects for payback, it's pretty good.
Mhm.
And there's a 0.75% administrative fee to the loans. And that's what they have to operate their department under that 0.75%. We're asking for y'all's support.
This was kind of passed before the Health and Ed Committee asked that not only we, as a legislative body, recommend a resolution, but joint with the school board asking that resolution. The presentation that we heard was quite impressive. Not only from the savings, but from future construction and what we learned from those
Oh,
savings
yes.
and how we build buildings, and all of those things just are tremendous as it relates to what we're doing in Rutherford County. Rutherford County's been used as an example many times, I think, as to how successful a program like this could be, and especially how it's quantified and how it's kept up with, and how it's all justifiable as far as the investment. I would not only support this. This is something that what you're doing, Jeff, is asking that we, as a legislative body, in conjunction with the school board, send this resolution to our legislative delegation, asking that those funds be increased. And we understand that there's a significant amount of money that could be available from a surplus perspective to reinvest in our school system.
Was it initially $90 million?
90 millions, but some of that was paid out in grants. Most of it is in basically a pool of loans. As we make our repayments, that money goes back into the fund and it is loaned out again.
And it came out primarily from the lottery fund?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Jeff, do you have a motion?
I move that we approve, forward it on to the full legislative
Okay.
delegation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner McAdoo, any discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, next is a process for, I guess, choosing the interim sheriff's appointment. I'd like to call on Mayor Burgess. And our HR Director, Sonia Stevens.
Okay, Okay, so this discussion sort of started at our November commission meeting, you might say, as to how we're going to manage this process in January at the full commission meeting. So last Friday, Mr. McCreary sent out an email regarding questions and process for selection of an appointed sheriff. So he answered several questions there, and maybe you might have any questions about that or any clarification. Did we put that on your iPads? Maybe we just.
Not Josh.
Oh, we did.
the email.
Josh's, he just emailed it to you. Okay. I'm not gonna go into that, but if any of you that read that have need for some questions, here he is.
I think it was very precise and to the point. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. That being said, we also emailed out to you on the last Friday. The first page was just a summary of what we already did at the November 17th, so that would keep in proper perspective the dates, et cetera, and what we did at that particular meeting. And then we've spent a substantial amount of time, Ms. Stevenson and I and Josh, and what we think we've developed here is something that comports to what he has said, his findings as he's had discussions with others and reviewed and analyzed all this. So the December 15th, 2016 County Commission meeting, what we are hoping that we can do is come to some agreement that this will be a process. This is basically rulemaking for your commission to handle the actual appointment on the January 12th meeting of the commission. So I hope you all had time to read this 2.5 pages, and we worked quite a bit on this to try to make it thorough, complete, and develop enough information that each of you would have available prior to this January 12th meeting, so you could know as much as possible that we could determine from each of these qualified candidates about their history and their experience and their professional leadership, et cetera. So Ms. Stevenson, you have anything you want to add to sort of the process? We've iterated and studied this substantially over a period of time here. And we're here to see if you have any issues that we need to address. She was largely responsible for developing a whole list of questions that we're going to ask to be provided in writing, so that each of you can have the same answers to the same questions that really properly describe in detail their experience and their qualifications and their philosophy about leadership.
One of the things that I mentioned to Josh, and you and I had talked about it, was the confidentiality of the applications. As the employer, which that would be you as the 21 commissions who will be appointing the interim sheriff position, it's not uncommon for you to receive the application in its totality, right? But that would not be something that would be subject to other people's purview. They wouldn't need to review it. Under that, there is confidential information: their address, their personal email account, their phone numbers, their cell phone numbers, family members, addresses and phone numbers of references. While that's open for your view, it's not open for others. And so Josh and I kind of talked about how you would best like to receive that information. Would it be that the applications, when they're dropped off at the mayor's office, you would want us to scan them and be redacted so there wouldn't be a situation in which that information did get out to somebody if you was looking at it and you left it laying and somebody picked it up? Or would you want the information and then just be extremely cautious with it? Because anytime you have somebody who's in law enforcement, there's an additional layer of confidentiality because they are in law enforcement, and we have to be mindful of their families to make sure that they're safe as well. And so that is one thing that I do think that we need to discuss. It's pretty important on how you would do it, and that's not something that we put in here because we needed guidance on how you wanted to do that.
I think it needs to be redacted before it's sent out.
Okay.
Okay, we can manage that.
Anything that would not be really relevant, you know, the confidentiality.
Right, I mean, it's information such as, I mean, you can find this under the Office of Open Records Council, but it's their personal home address, their email account, their phone numbers. It is their family members' addresses and phone numbers and those type things. Even in law enforcement, it goes a step further with, you know, potentially where they went to school. It depends on how much we get into it, you know, just to make sure while they're not current, they may be a current law enforcement agent of another agency, we still want to be mindful that if they're going to be our interim sheriff, that we want to make sure that their families and family members are safe and secure and that information's not out there, so.
So under open records, any news outlet, any media could ask for those copies and receive the same information that we would receive, except for that personal information that you outlined there. So they would have privy to everything that we had except for the personal. Okay. One more. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Go ahead.
The medical information, like the psychological, anything that's medical related, absolutely nobody gets a copy of that. I mean, we can't even really turn that information over to you guys because that is medical and that is protected under that, and that's not something that we give out to anyone.
And we're not asking for any of that information
Right.
here.
I mean, nobody sees it?
Well, the post would see it, and then they would give us the information, and they would.
What you'll know is that they're post qualified.
Qualified.
That's all you'll know from the
And
post.
And looked at it.
So we'll know something.
Right, you'll know if they're qualified or not qualified.
Yeah.
But, so, you wouldn't necessarily, let me put it in a different way. If the post did not qualify them to be sheriff, you wouldn't necessarily know it's because they failed their psychological evaluation. It just meant that they didn't meet one of the criteria by which they didn't pass, because.
You have no idea what that criteria
Right.
was, you know.
And we wouldn't need that to be out there because that's something that.
That November 22nd was the first day that any applicant could pick up their packet.
Yes, sir.
What's the last day they can turn it in?
December the 23rd.
So we still got a couple of weeks left to go to pick up those applicants. How many do we have so far?
We've had 20 to pick up their qualifying packets.
And we still got more to come?
I doubt it. We did get one last Friday, but
we could have more to come.
We could have. Their time is shorter for them to get their qualifying packet submitted to the post every day that they wait, and for them to, just to get it turned in.
I think, at least for me, I don't want to speak for anybody else and be very careful not to speak for public safety. I would still, Mayor, Sonia, whoever, still push strongly for a special call meeting related to the interview portion. Because if for some reason we have 20 candidates that, I just don't know how that's fair to them or to us. If they have a 5-minute period to address 5 questions, we have 3 minutes to follow up. And if Commissioner Johnson, McAdoo, myself, and Mr. Stevens have questions for one candidate, they can't answer them all. And
3 minutes per question per candidate, isn't it?
what it says on here,
Follow
we have 3 minutes
Just
to ask the candidate question. So my concern, I still think we need to have a special call meeting either that Monday or Tuesday related to nothing but candidates, and then we're able to make some decisions that night. So the full commission meeting is not, I hate to say prolonged, but not that, we've been going at this for 2 years. I don't want us, I think, to steal Commissioner Johnson's word, what he shared earlier, what was it you shared about
Haste makes waste.
Haste makes waste. We owe everybody that's candidates, number one, but more importantly, the citizens, the right amount of time to make sure we get this thing right. And I just don't feel comfortable that we would be able to do that. I think everything at the rest of this, I think, looks good. Was very excited to read it. I just have strong reservations about doing it on a commission night when I think we should do it on a special call meeting. And
Well, our basic thought process was this. We have tried to develop every question that should be asked during an interview,
Right.
along with a detailed outline of what this resume should contain. So we
Right.
think we've got 90 to 95% of the questions answered that are relevant in writing, that you guys will all have, hopefully from January the 9th, or maybe earlier if the post completes their qualification list, several days to review this. So that was our thinking.
No, I think that it's good. I think there's a difference, though. People can write stuff. There's a difference in looking them in the eye and talking to them, get them to answer you in front of looking at us. And not dismissing what the mayor just said, he's right. I just still feel better when I know I've got plenty of time and there's not a ticking clock behind me to say I got to ask candidate A this, and if I don't get to him, what if it swayed my vote for him versus somebody else because I got a question?
You're going to get two bites at the apple here. Every candidate that's qualified will get a 5-minute opportunity to speak and say what he wants to in describing his abilities, his experiences, his qualifications, along with answering what we think are pretty much, how many questions was that?
There was a J, I think you had 10 or 12 on there.
The purpose of those
No,
questions.
no, look on page 2, under number 4. There are 5 other things that we've asked them that are sort of open-ended discussions that will give them an opportunity and give us an opportunity for them to speak on their own, standing on their own 2 feet and explore and sort of look at their whole philosophy about leadership. So that's in addition to these previously prepared written questions that they're going to have to turn in. So that, again, gives them an opportunity for us to see how they speak, how they address these issues, and how they communicate effectively or not.
But we still only get 3 minutes to ask a question back.
After that 5 minutes.
Right, that's what I'm getting.
He's saying if 21 commissioners all want to ask that candidate one question,
if you
then that's
if
3
you want
minutes
to
for
make that
21.
5 or 10 minutes, I'm perfectly okay with it. I think that would be acceptable.
Well, that's what I'm kind of getting at, is I don't know if we should put a time on it. In a commission meeting, that's why I think we need to have a special call meeting, because especially for the chair, Mayor Burgess would be the one running that. So if Commissioner Johnson, McAdoo, and Stevens raise their hand with 30 seconds left on that 3-minute one, who does he go to? Instead of saying we're going to go to Commissioner McAdoo, Stevens, and the Johnson next 3. I think
if you wanted to make 4C, just strike that and leave it open-ended for you. Each of you to take 10 minutes, 30 minutes, or an hour. We just take the 3 minutes out of it.
Well, that's true. I just think we need a special meeting. I don't want to belabor my point. I just think we need.
So you don't think we could change that 3 minutes to unlimited and without a special
No,
meeting?
sir. Not for me. I just think we need to have a special call meeting. That's all.
I believe if we can endure the public hearing that we had on zoning, I believe we ought to be able to endure striking that C for unlimited time, don't you, Mayor?
Yes. I mean, if that's your wishes,
I
we'll
believe
do it.
I believe that's the prudent thing to do, instead of trying to limit it. So,
Well, the public hearing meeting went about an hour.
Well,
that's 20 candidates for sheriff, and we only get 5 minutes to ask them. That's the same thing. But
if it's open-ended, that's what you get paid the big bucks.
Well, no, yeah, but I wouldn't quite say that. Yeah. Well, I get that. I just, given the topic and the sensitivity, again, it's just my opinion that this needs to be given special attention. And I know the mayor's not trying to ram it through the commission meeting for the monthly. I get that.
If it takes us
It's
all
just for
night,
me.
if you want to recess at midnight and come back the next morning, we'll do it.
Yeah. Well, that's no, I
don't
completely
think
get
we'll
that.
get 20 of these people qualified. I don't even know how many of them are going to turn back in.
No, I understand. I just, like I said my piece.
Okay, Commissioner McAdoo.
Yeah, that's what I was going to reference. We can always recess, continue that meeting, come back the next day. I don't want to see anything done in haste myself, but we always have the opportunity. If we do not finish, we can always continue the meeting the next day. If that doesn't work, we can continue it the next day. We can go on the whole week, if we have to, but I don't want to limit any one person to a time frame of 3 minutes. Because you brought up a good point. Eye-to-eye contact, you may be able to pull something out of that individual that's not on paper.
But it also, the process said that we could recall a candidate.
Even
for another
after,
3
even
minutes,
that, there's a
so-
recall opportunity for each one of them, for you to bring them back in.
Like if you listen to all, however many
All
it
of
is,
them,
20
and
or
you-
whatever, and then something prompts a question, then that still leaves you the opportunity.
To bring them back in one by one, individually, as you so request.
We've
So-
always continued, right, Josh?
So basically, in section C, we, striking out, will be given 3 minutes, each commissioner will be given the opportunity to ask the candidate different
Yes.
questions.
Right.
Striking out the, given 3 minutes,
Yes.
and add,
Well,
Right.
Probably
we'll
not
do
all
that
21
if that's what you choose.
no, that's true, because, the possibility of, some of the commissioners, somebody else will ask the question that they had in their mind anyway, so.
Right.
Of course, that's like, asking the question, how high is up, it's just how you perceive it,
Well, my thinking is that the night that we actually make the decision, it would be nice to have it whittled down to a pool of 3 or 5 from which we choose. And the recess thing sounds great, but there's going to be people that have work the next day that can't be there at the meeting. If you schedule it at 9 o'clock in the morning, I know I've got a trial that morning already. And,
Well,
people that work in Nashville are not be able to make the meeting.
Still the schedule, 6 o'clock the next evening.
Well,
We can always recess, correct?
And well, of course, I hope you've noted in here, there is a whittling down process. After each vote, the candidate or candidates, if there happen to be 2 of them to get the same number of lowest
if the
votes,
information-
are removed from the next deliberation.
if the information is going to be as detailed as it seems like it will be from the questions that are asked, it seems like we could whittle down some of the people on a ballot, everybody choose their top 5 to interview, and then just interview the top 5 or top 8 or however many candidates to save time.
And we
Well-
did talk about that. The thing is sometimes you need somebody on paper maybe doesn't, some people will be able to answer a question on paper or to give you a more detailed answer. The part of that is so that they can give you a thoughtful answer about a question that you may have asked. So it's actually an advantage to them because you're probably going to have a better answer than you would have in an impromptu setting. The part with the 5 questions is those more leadership involved, so that gives you an opportunity to hear their public speaking and how they respond to answers and the commissioners and those type things. And so we had talked about, doing in reverse, but Sonia thinks, and I'll just tell you that, is that I just think that they need the opportunity at least to meet and greet in that 5 minutes. Then that's why we said the 5 minutes. It would give them an opportunity to answer those 5 questions that are around leadership, but also get to see them face to face and hear their presentation skills. And so that's where that came in. Then you have the opportunity to whittle down, as you say, after that. And that way everybody has an opportunity to look at you and speak to you initially.
And we don't, it's going to require a nomination out of these qualified candidates. Each qualified candidate gets an opportunity to present themselves, but then it's going to take some commissioner feeling that a particular candidate is strong enough to be nominated. If they don't get nominated, they don't go into this further process of being considered.
Will a commissioner be able to only nominate one person?
One person. Each
Yeah,
commissioner is given one opportunity to nominate one person.
I don't really see 20
So
people.
I doubt if you're going to get
4 or
20
5.
nominations, even for all the qualified. I think it's a much smaller number.
So then they'll come in, they'll speak their 5 minutes and on the leadership, and then each of the 21 commissioners will make their nominations. And then from that, anybody who's not nominated does not then go on to the next phase of deliberation. Does that make sense?
And then after those presentations, you can call back one or all of them again for further questions. So you open up, 4C would be an open-ended amount of time to give every commissioner another opportunity, or as many as they want, to ask additional questions. And then further, after the nominations, you can, if you have additional questions, you can bring those nominees back in. The first time you're talking about all the qualified people being given an opportunity to present themselves.
Mayor, did Vicky sent this out on the email to start with, correct? Okay. Did she send the typo or on E there that we talked about?
She did.
Okay, did she send a correction out on that?
She
It's-
put it,
it's
she
on the
put,
iPad.
it's on the
It's on
iPad,
the iPad.
but we haven't sent it back out because
Okay.
she just did that
Okay.
today.
But if y'all got.
Well, what it is, what it said previously under page 1 of that is 2E said, what is the highest number of direct and indirect reports? That's a HR
Oh.
term. We changed that to direct and indirect staff positions.
Okay.
That's on your iPad.
So what this committee is charged to do is to kind of approve whatever process we want to come up with, and then the full commission will vote in December.
You'll
on the
discuss this and
process.
vote on it in December.
And then that will be the
15th.
rules for January.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm not so sure that we go through, on page 2, we go through, I guess it's section, I don't know, section C. And then we begin the process of making the selection. That's where I think that there is a distinct, should be a distinct separation right there. If we had a special call meeting, we would stop right there, and then at our regular meeting on that Thursday night, that's where that next section, the nomination process would be. I'm not sure after hours, and I don't know how many's going to turn it in, but after hours of listening to candidates, and if we do indeed go into this with an open mind and not already have our minds made up, that we'll be processing all of that just like that and be ready to go into that process. That's the concern that I have with this all trying to be done in one particular meeting.
Which section did you say would be the
He
first?
said,
See, yeah,
page
we're talking
2.
about the minutes. So you don't think with the questions that you've received in advance that are pre-answered, so like you'll have the application, you'll have a resume, and everybody's resume will be in the same standard format, and their pre-answered questions, their 10 or 12 questions that are pre-answered prior to the interview, if you had those on the 6th or 7th to read in advance, to give you, I mean, I'm just asking, because that's kind of where I was.
I'm not sure that you guys are looking at it, you are looking at it the same way that we may be looking at it.
Okay.
The interview process is one thing, bam. The selection process is another thing, bam. And we're adding all those together. And to make a selection that night, when we go through the interview process, is we maybe won't come up with the very best. So if we had that special call meeting on a Tuesday night, went through the interview process, then on Thursday night, and I'm just using Tuesday night as an example and Thursday night, but if Thursday night at our full example, we had the process to have deliberated in our own minds and say, this is the person that I like, or I like this person, and this person. But I like this person enough to nominate him or her. I don't know that I'd have all that information to be able to do that very night without having pre-decided what I'm going to do. And if we're going into this thing with an open mind, I'm not sure that we could make that decision that night. That's where my problem is.
Might be too much,
I
too much absorbing too much information.
I don't
Right.
care about having a special meeting or anything else, but I do think that we're making the process, the interview process and the selection process at the same time. So I'm going to hire a new production manager where I work, and I've got 16 applicants to interview, and I'm going to try to do it in one day, and everybody, you go out here and wait, and then by the end of this day, I'm going to choose one of these guys. That's not how the process works, and that's not how you make good decisions.
It's true.
So I'm thinking that what you do is have a special meeting or 2 meetings. I don't really care if it's a special meeting. I don't care if it's paid. I don't care. But I think you do the interview process in one meeting, and then at the next one, you do the nominating and selection process. And I think it would go much smoother, and it would be a lot less time consuming, and my brain won't be fried by that selection process. I'll be ready to rejuvenate myself, and if I have someone I want to nominate, would have had a couple of days to think about it, and be prepared to nominate with, as this thing says, all of my reasons for that nomination. If I have something in writing and I'm going to nominate that, I would have made up my mind before I got to the process, and that looks crummy. It looks crummy to me, it looks crummy to, I think, a lot of our fellow commissioners, and I think darn sure it looks crummy to the people who I represent. So that's my problem with trying to do all this in one night.
So where, tell me
So
where you
he's
draw
saying
the
right
line.
here, right here.
Well, just let him tell us.
Okay.
I'm just trying to read that and make that determination. I think C deals with the, on page 2, number C deals with the whole application process, and then starting on
D?
On D is where you begin to make the selection process. At least that's where I make the determination. Am I making sense to anybody?
No, that's
Yeah, it makes sense.
But I think at the decision-making process, I would like to say that all the questions have already been asked. That, because in D, you've got.
But he didn't want to do the nominations until
Right.
the next phase.
Right, but on D, you've got follow-up questions.
Right, you mean in this special call
And
session, you just lay out all your
yeah,
questions and get them answered there before we get to the regular meeting?
Right, in other words, instead of having all of the questions, I guess, should transfer from D up to C, where when we meet for the final meeting to decide that all the questions have been asked, and we go straight into deliberation.
Well, see, the only thing where there are any other questions, opportunity is under F. After the nominations, and that would be at the regular meeting as he suggested.
Has made their presentation.
So let's just say, for example,
Wait, let's let Jeff, let's let him finish his whole process first.
I'm reading this wrong. Am I reading it wrong, Robert? This thing says D, after each qualified candidate has made their presentation and commissioners have asked follow-up questions. To me, Mr. Chairman, it's saying that that's already done.
that's of the initial candidates before you made your nomination. So like, you have 20 candidates, and you only have, let's say you have 10 nominations, okay? So you have 20 candidates, they've all come and presented. You have an opportunity for your follow-up questions, that 3-minute that we've marked out that you said you could ask what you want. So then, let's say you have 10 nominations. So now you've got those 10 candidates that have been nominated now. The other 10 are not. The question then comes in, do we need, just for those 10 candidates, to ask a specific question that you might want to follow up? I mean, we put that in there because we thought that there may be an instance where somebody would have a follow-up question for one of the nominated candidates that maybe after they sit there for, kind of like you said, you're mulling over the whole process, that you might have another question. So
you could still do it that way and still do it at your regular meeting. Yes.
Right.
I see what you're saying. But starting with D, the initial follow-up questions have all been done.
Yes. Yes. Sir.
Yeah, okay, I got you.
Yes, they have. Then after the nominations, we suggested one more opportunity for you to ask questions.
Only of those.
Only those that were
names
nominated.
put in nomination.
Yes, sir.
Will the calendar allow special meeting prior to the commission meeting?
Sure.
Well,
10th maybe.
So we'll be getting the packets back to you guys on the 9th or earlier, depending on when the posts get, they have to the 6th, is that right? To get them back?
Yeah, they have to Friday the 6th to turn in their qualifying list to us. It may be earlier, but they have that much time if they need it.
But if we don't get them till the 9th,
Then you have one day to review.
Then we'll meet Tuesday night, the 10th.
okay, and how are we gonna get the package again?
We'll email them, or if you want us to, we'll hire a delivery service and bring them to your office.
Okay.
Whatever we want to, we'll guarantee delivery on, if I have to
Probably be
get in my car.
Well, do you think that we could all have them by Friday, the 6th?
We can only have them by Friday the 6th if the post
Gets them
completes
early.
them. Because they have that long, they have 14 days.
And depending on how many people actually apply, he's already said there's a big number, so I have to scan all the documents that are sent with every one of those, then I have to redact them, then I have to reprint them for each person, and I have to do that 21 times. So,
And the Post could kind of know our sense of urgency.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
they already
they
do.
told,
They already do.
they said if they get through with those early, they'll do their very, very best
Okay.
to beat that time, but we can't guarantee that, but we'll do everything we can to. If they get them to us on Thursday, you'll have them on Friday.
Okay, so there's no other meetings on the 10th then? Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, that's right, there's no meetings
is your
except the commission meeting on
The
the
12th?
If it's your normal commission, then there shouldn't be anything on that Tuesday.
It is.
No, there's never another meeting except the commission.
Okay, so the proposal now is to have a special call meeting on the 10th.
Same time, 6
Same,
o'clock.
6 o'clock, and then we will go all the way up through C, which will be the interview part.
Right.
And then at the full commission on the 12th, we will have the deliberation
That's,
and the nominations and deliberation.
Mhm.
Yes.
Selection process. Okay, so let's go ahead and put that in form of a motion, is accepting this plan and with the changes that you've made. I think Becky's probably already got it written down.
I just want to make sure, you guys have put a lot of time and effort into this, and I can't tell you what that leadership means to most of us on the commission, if not all of us on the commission. Is that totally acceptable to you guys?
absolutely,
Okay.
we're gonna get the same outcome, we're just gonna take a breath and give some thought process time to you folks before we actually start the actual deliberations.
Then I'll put that in form of a motion.
Okay, is there a second? Commissioner Johnson?
I'll second, but this C will be straightened up. It says, after each qualified candidate has completed their initial presentation, the commissioners will be, will have the
Allowed.
opportunity to ask candidates.
correct,
Yeah.
I'll change that.
Okay, that 3 minutes.
Yeah, we're not
allowed
leaving
to
the
ask the
special call
candidate.
meeting until every question is answered.
Yeah.
We're gonna rewrite this, we're gonna subdivide this so you can see that there's,
And we'll change the dates on it.
and we're gonna change the date to December the 13th for 1 through 4C, and then we're gonna December the 15th, 4D through the end of the process.
I hate to overuse this word, but I believe that would be more palatable to everyone.
Okay, well, that word's been overused so much. So, any other discussion?
It's not discussion, just a thank you, Mayor and
Yes,
Sonia,
thank you.
for being flexible, because this is, obviously the most focused decision we've had to make in several years related to the people that are paying attention, but thank you for your flexibility, because I think we just did the right thing for everybody involved, candidates and constituents.
Do we want to start a little bit earlier?
Yeah, is it possible? What do you think? Would
For
it
the
be?
special call meeting?
Yeah.
We'd have to ask, sort of have to poll you guys, I don't know whether it's a work schedule problem for someone to get here by 4, 6 o'clock or not.
I can try. But I don't know who else has to drive. So-
I think it's so important, we should probably just keep it at the 6 o'clock, so we know that everyone can make it as far as work
Because the
schedule.
public will probably want to
In the
attend
public.
also. 6 o'clock.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And I have a question about
Yes.
the special call meeting. Robert's Rules of Order says when you have a special call meeting, you refer to your bylaws, your organization, or your handbook. Our rules, from what I remember, say that a committee chairman can call a special call meeting. But from what I remember reading, it doesn't say that the commission chairman can call a special call meeting. So I think that our attorney needs to look into that for us and be sure that we can do this. And I would.
Well, why don't you just allow your chairperson to go ahead and call?
No, he can call a special call meeting of his committee. He can't call a special call meeting of the whole
Excuse
commission.
me, I'm sorry.
I was like,
So,
Yeah.
and I had to look at those in a while, but I want to be sure that we don't get in some kind of
No,
legal
that's-
controversy for not
You're
having
right,
that.
you're right. I do think, probably should just wait and look at it, but under the 55111 that I cited several times in my memo, that sets out some of the questions about process. It does specifically mention in E, passing, or the county commission setting up rules for this process. And I think in general, that the county commission has the authority to pass a resolution, which you will be doing in December, to set up this process, one step of which will be the specially called meeting. So I'm thinking we can probably get there, but I think it's, anyway.
It might be good to
I
straighten
understand
that
the
out.
question, and let's be confident.
Within the motion that we is passed, it's in there calling for a special call meeting, so when the full commission approves it, hopefully, then that would be actually calling for a special call meeting. You think?
Well, I
But
think
in-
that is, yeah, that's the rationale I'm using right now, but I still think Commissioner
check.
We need to
Stevens
check
is
into
smart
it.
to say, if we've got bylaws that don't address this, then we need to be thoughtful about whether or not that
We
matters.
can bring that up at the meeting if we need to and vote on
Yeah.
changing it.
You could amend the
Yeah,
bylaws.
between
after
now and then at
December.
the meeting, then Josh is actually going to craft a resolution that he thinks passes the
And
test.
I may have misread that, but I'm not remembering that I saw that, so.
Well, all of this, see, we really don't have bylaws that tell us how
But
to
we
do
have
a
our
special
commission- we
election.
have our commission
So
rules.
this, you're adopting these rules, which are one-time rules, but just as, so you'll have rules.
Months ago, we asked for this. When we voted 21-0 to ask the sheriff to resign.
Well,
We asked for this process, and here we are.
Okay, so our next item on our agenda, I think that the courthouse is closed for our, is it our January meeting? Yes. And we need to choose another date. A possible date would be December 29th, January the 4th, or Monday the 9th.
Try not to do that.
Monday the 9th would be the day before the special call
Okay,
meeting.
December 29th has been X'd out. So we have January the 4th
I
or
would
the
say,
9th.
I would say the fourth. Instead of back-to-back meetings that next week.
I'm clear on the 4th.
Hey, that's what I was waiting, now we're good.
Okay.
Mr. Phillips said he's.
He's always the last hang down.
That's it. So I would make a motion, then we just set it January 4th.
Okay, we got a motion, do a second. Commissioner Phillips, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So our January meeting will be on January the 4th.
Is that when we're gonna meet with our legislators?
No, that's just our regular call.
Well, we're gonna meet with them, or are we?
Do you want to shoot for that date as you're meeting with them?
Well, there's been some discussion, I forgot who brought it up, about meeting in the middle of December.
Me.
Commissioner
So
Phillips.
that's you?
Yep,
So you always call.
that's what my wife says.
Okay.
You had been close to my wife. haven't you?
No, I haven't.
All right.
So what discussion do we have on the legislative meeting?
I think if we have it, it needs to be kept under control this time. I think last time it got,
Got ugly.
I think some of the.
I don't remember getting ugly.
Well, I'm just not sure.
Seriously?
I'm not sure if it produced much of anything for us, but
I would have to say it's almost too late to have a meeting with the legislatures in December. And when do they start session?
The first week in January.
it's earlier, mid-January.
And then, because the cutoff on new bills is like the first or second week in February.
30 days after or something.
Okay, so I suppose we would just have that on the 4th then.
If they can do it.
If they
that'd be
can.
good, yeah. And if they can't do it, then we'll,
Do something else.
I guess.
So you want Vicky to
Poll
poll
them,
the
yeah.
legislators?
Yeah, poll the, yeah, well, need her to poll.
Because that's really our only opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
It's up to them to come, I suppose. Any other business before the steering committee? If not, then we stand adjourned. Thank you.